Happy New Year, one and all. He's Hunter Pence. I'm Daron Sutton, and thanks for hanging out with us. Hunter, Tim Corbin is coming on, the head coach of Vanderbilt. And when you and I first were lucky enough to find one another, I'm very lucky that we found you on this show. But Tim Corbin was one of our very, very first guests. I think we did radio only, and we love every time we connect with Tim Corbin. And there are many reasons why. What are some of your reasons you love chatting with the Vandy head coach?
I mean, Tim Corbin is just one of the thought leaders of this day and age. He's one of the greatest baseball coaches, but one of the greatest minds in general, just in life. And always great to learn what's going on at Vanderbilt. This is the most exciting time. It's a new year. What a wonderful gift to get to talk baseball with Tim Corbin and talk life and get to pick his brain on what's next and what's up and coming. And obviously another talented roster at Vanderbilt this season.
And during the holidays, Anthony Donofrio, a young player at Quinnipiac, sent an email to kind of all the perfect game world explaining that he just wanted his story out there. He'd like to play pro ball. He had an incredible, what was his fourth year of college, an on base of .392 at Quinnipiac. And so we're going to allow him to tell his story, to share his dream. It's kind of a unique thing to follow up Coach Corbin, but I think it kind of interests you as well.
Yeah, I think it's a great message. It's a great lesson to learn is, send a letter, like do every little thing you can do. If you have a dream, go for it. And I think baseball teaches us many lessons in life. And this is a go-getter. He's starting to put the work in, and it wasn't the easiest path. But what an exciting story. And to get to look at how he's played, he's definitely put up some statistical numbers that could, give you permission to believe he should get a chance to play pro ball, but he's also doing every little work that he can. I'm excited to hear about his baseball career and what he's got looking forward to this season.
Permission's a great word, Hunter, because he just wants permission to fill out a roster somewhere in rookie ball, somewhere in A ball. He's got to have another great year at Quinnipiac. That's our show. Excited to talk with Coach Corbin and to talk with Anthony as well, right here on Perfect Game College Baseball. Hunter and I always talk about guests that we love to have on, and Hunter always says at the end of great conversations, man, I wish I could have had more time. Well, Coach Corbin will let us know when he is done on this one, but one of the reasons that we had Coach Corbin to lead off the new year is to give Hunter a little more time to dive in. I love listening to the two of them, but I've got some questions too. Tim, thanks for spending time with us. Happy New Year to you and your program.
Likewise. Thank you very much, fellas.
So when you have a program like yours, where they're just expectations, that's a great way to put it, and you and your players have built those expectations. As you look through to the holidays, what were the final messages you sent your young men off with, and probably encouraged them to maybe unplug a bit if they could from all of the drive that they go through? But what message did you send them off with, and how are they returning to campus to you?
Well, that'll be interesting. They'll come back at the end of the week, so that certainly starts everything. But I think the messaging is pretty consistent throughout the year. When they're leaving, they're always representing, which is important for them to understand too, because even though they're far away, they're actually always connected by the culture that we have and the people that surround them. So I think they're very knowing of that. But I think what makes college and professional baseball a little bit different is our ramp up time actually happens away from campus. So you finish fall baseball and then you decompress a little bit. And then as you get into Thanksgiving and the Christmas holidays, you start to ramp back up again. And then they're gone for 30 days. So there's an expectation when they're gone for 30 days that there's a continuation of training that takes place, albeit not with the same people and not the same resources. So sometimes they have to be a little bit creative, and some have the resources. But when they get back, you're just hoping that they're in the type of shape that they need to be so that we can get into this continuation, which happens middle of January.
Wow, Tim, it is kind of wild. And this is one of the things I love about baseball and college baseball in general is there's a lot of like, what are you doing when no one's looking? And you see those results that come out on the field. And but anyway, this is one of the most exciting times for me, Tim. I'm very excited for this, to get to ask you this. I think of you as one of the leading edges in all of the realm of baseball, and no matter what level. And I wanted to just ask you, like, for development of players is really fun for me in the college level, but for development as a coach and to be on the leading edge for this long, how much does your program change from year to year? And what did you learn most about yourself and your program in 2022?
Well, I do. I think you have to reinvent yourself every year because regardless of what you have coming back, whether it's, well, everyone's new. If you're a junior for the first time. If you're a senior for a first time. And that brings on its own challenges. I think the best recruits that you have in your program are the seniors come back because they select to come back. They could have gone off, but they chose not to. And this is one of those years, Hunt, where we've got 10 of them. And typically we usually have 2 to 3, but this year we have 10. And before the season started, regardless of what happened last year, I went into this thinking a little bit differently because when you have that many seniors, you have help. You have older brothers that can create messaging through their actions and through their verbiage to these younger guys, which is really a great resource. So knowing that that's the case, you do set up a year a little bit differently. There may be things that you set up just to empower the older kids to do the things that you might as a coach because you've got a younger team and more inexperienced team. But in this case, you have more experience and the allowance of letting them drive the car, so to speak, letting them grab the key, say, I've got this, let you watch this, you enjoy it. If we need help, we'll let you know. And not that it's that case, but I think you find yourself walking right next to them and watching them take ownership of the situation, which is very fulfilling.
Wow, Tim, it's a wonderful dynamic, and I've always loved that as, kind of playing in college baseball, playing in the majors for a long time and seeing how different leaderships work themselves out. And for me, 14 years in the big leagues, and it could have been the same players, but each year has a different identity no matter what. And same with college, year to year, it could have been the same team, but totally different identity. And you're saying, you have this 10 seniors. This is a unique, special year. What do you think would be the identity of this team as you're going in and the keys to this year's team's success?
I think we'll see. I think you brought up a point that, you've been a part of 14 different teams. And I think when you get on certain teams, Hunter, you feel different energies every year. And there's some years where you jump into it, you go, oh my gosh, I can just feel it. This is going to be a good group. It's the energy of the group. Now, whether that's the case with us or not, I don't know. But I think it's the energy that's created inside the group. And sometimes you have a tough time creating that energy. And it's not an indictment on one particular kid or a group of kids. It's just kind of the flow of the group. But when you get it, it's such a unique and nice wave to ride because it's just a flow. And in those moments that the losses, you get over them quicker. The wins, they recover quicker from the wins too. I think recovering from winning is just as important from recovering from losing because teams that recover from winning, they put it aside and they center themselves the very next day and say, okay, that's done. Now let's move on to the next thing. And that's a mature thinking group. But I think I'm looking forward to seeing what type of energy we're going to create with this group and how that energy brings us to our potential. And hopefully that potential is high.
Energy seems like the perfect word for me to tie to Enrique Bradfield Jr. And it's interesting having seen him play through high school, as you did, obviously, and watching him very closely, and then to see him evolve to understand his success rate in stealing nearly 100 bases in college. And now, all eyes will be on him, not just in the SEC, but globally as it pertains to baseball in the next step. As a young man, how have you seen him evolve, enjoyed your time with him, and what are you most excited about for Enrique this year?
I see a lot of consistency in how he approaches his day, whether that's academic or athletic. And, the fact that you saw him young too, Daron, gives you a greater perspective than most because you saw a young kid that was 140, 145 pounds. And I think you're guessing on what he will become. And he certainly has gotten stronger, both mentally and physically. But the area that I see with him over time is he is very consistent in his approach to everything. He's got a lot of energy for academics. He's got a lot of energy for team building. He's got a lot of energy for character development and leadership. And then certainly the area on the field, he's just highly, highly competitive. I mean, going after a baseball, his uniqueness in when you see kids grab a baseball over the fence, you usually see that once every 3 years. But in the time that he's been here, it's almost like this happens more than it ever should. And you're thinking the timing of that to happen, the athleticism of how that happens, and just the competitiveness of getting up in the air, going over a fence and coming back with a ball. That's such a unique feat. And his ability to replicate that, it just brings to light that, yeah, he's a little different. He's a little different in how he plays the outfield. He's a little different in how he engages in offense. And I say offense because him standing in the batter's box is just like a third of the event. Once he gets to first base, it's like, okay, this is where it gets more exciting. And I've just tell myself to enjoy what we're watching right now, because those players are few and far between. They don't show up every day, but the reason he is who he is because it's a continuation of development that has been on his shoulders, and how competitive he wants to be internally and how competitive he wants to be for this team.
I'm going to go off script because I wanted to stick to the 23s, but I can't, when I listen to you talk about Enrique, I can't help but think of Spencer Jones, who again we saw as a Cali kid, tall, 6'7". Is he a pitcher? Is he a hitter? He found his way as an offensive piece. He had a heck of a year with the Yankees in the minor leagues. I mean, stole a dozen bags, got on a 425 clip. How proud are you as he goes on to the pro level now of his development, what you saw in your time with Spencer?
It's almost like he got cheated here at Vanderbilt because he was hurt his first 2 years, so he didn't get an allotment of at-bats. And you were just waiting for him to get healthy so he could get on the field and you could actually be exposed to what you thought he was going to be. He loves the game. And last year, at least at Vanderbilt, was just a depiction of who he is. I mean, this is a kid that really started banging the ball on all sides of the ballpark. The Yankees picked the right guy. I don't say that because he's ours. They just got the right guy because you just knew that when he left here, it's just the beginning of what he's going to be. I don't want to compare him to Aaron in any way, Aaron Judge, just because they're in the same organization. But, I watched Aaron as a college player, watched him up in the Cape Cod League because he played with two of our players. And Aaron Judge wasn't Aaron Judge back then, but Aaron Judge became that player because of the continuation of development inside of him too. And I think Spencer follows that similar path. It's 6'7". It's like true 6'7" runner that runs a 6'4" 60. Who does that? Those players aren't out there. And this is a guy that's got kind of a timing swing that he hits through the baseball, and his power is just to all sides of the field. So he's a very unique player who can really play defense, who loves to play defense, loves to run the bases, loves the offensive part. And, the other piece that I love about him, he's just so chill. It's a San Diego kid with just such a nice demeanor when he's on the field, and kind of a calming demeanor, a lot like J.J. Bleday. So, I'm really proud, but happy for him that he's having success in a very short time.
Tim, this is the beauty of baseball, if you ask me. You're talking of, the Aaron Judges, and then we talk about, the Enrique Bradfield Jr., and it makes me think of the Judge and the Altuve picture, two,
right,
elite players that just changed the game. And for me, Enrique Bradfield Jr. has just got that magnetism. Like, you're watching. I played, like I said, I played a long time, and I practiced robbing homers. I robbed maybe one. It was questionable my whole career, and he's pulling that off. The athleticism, the instincts to go 46 for 46 in stolen bases. That tells me you're not just talented. There's something deeper. There's an it factor, and that's what's beautiful about baseball is you can have the skinny Enrique Bradfield Jr. I'm sure he's getting bigger now, make a big impact, and same with the bigger guys, the 6'6". It's just a wonderful game, and I gotta dive into the development a little bit more and the invisible time. You go and play summer ball, you go away for a month during the holidays. How has the development been since we've been talking about this? What have you seen, I guess, this fall, and who do you think has made the biggest jump this season?
Well, you talk about development, and I'll go back to Enrique quickly. What I liked about Enrique's track is he went off and played he went off to the Cape Cod League, went to USA Baseball, and then went back to the Cape Cod League, which I think for a lot of players, once they go to USA Baseball, it's fine, but they take the rest of the summer off. And Enrique's development, you can tell how competitive he was because he went right back to it. But the thing is, even coming back here, we started fall a little bit later so we could do a lot of individual work in September and the beginning of October. So we went from mid-October to Thanksgiving. But I think the development period then, we've modified it through the years. We've done more individually than team. And then we've had some older kids that weren't able to throw towards the end of the fall. So the ramp up time, they'll be throwing more when we get back in here in January. But I've always enjoyed the fall the most because you're competing to some degree, but that's maybe 2 games, and then you're competing against one another every so often. But I really think the development time where you can individually work with these kids, and for them too, to be in the facility as much as they want to. I think that's the other cool thing about college baseball is this facility is open 24/7 and they have access to it. And they don't need Tim Corbin or Mike Baxter or Scott Brown or Tyler Shoemaker next to them when they're here. So it's not odd for me to be in my office at 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night before I pick up Maggie for dinner and just walk out and they're still in the batting cages, still whacking away. And I think that's the cool part of college baseball, at least when you have the resources, is to watch these kids continually develop. Even when the clock says, no, we're done as a team, they're not done. They're still thinking, well, I enjoy being down here. And I think the enjoyment and the passion to be around it all the time is the difference of the Dansby Swansons and maybe the guys that don't become the Dansby Swansons is their love for the game in which they want to be there all the time. So that's really the cool part of the development, at least here. And I'm sure that's the case in a lot of places.
Tim, I got just a beautiful feeling just hearing the story of Enrique Bradfield being like, no, I'm not done. I want to play more, because nothing beats experience. Nothing beats hanging out at the cage all hours of the night. That's where you turn yourself into the Dansby Swanson. And the fact that it doesn't surprise me that you're out here you have to find a way to get the players to become their best coaches and coach yourself. And that's forged through playing, through going out there and getting after it. You mentioned one thing that I've never heard before, and I just love it because I recognize throughout my career, I love just thinking in the philosophy of baseball and the mentality, because there's development mentally, physically, leadership wise. But you talked about recovering from a win. And I noticed this, that a lot of times on teams, when you get into these win streaks, you get a little bit more lax, a little bit more loose, a little bit more fun. And I always would kind of notice that and see it swing the other way. And I'm like, how do you recenter and refocus? And how do you even have intention with such a concept to college kids? I would love to just hear more of your thoughts on recentering after a win.
Well, it's probably a bigger concept that happened a long time ago. And I think it's whether it's life experiences or baseball experiences, is that ability to stay in the middle. And I think whether it's, and I explain it to the kids in broad terms, in terms of winning a national championship, which is exuberance, and then the far end of devastation, which could be grief, it could be losing a player, which we did back in 2016. And although they're on either side of the spectrum, they're really relatives of one another because they're extreme emotions. And extreme emotions, certainly grief is not an emotion that we want to get to. And exuberance, we want to get to. But at the same time, they're both so uncomfortable that we find ourselves we want to get to that comfort spot where we're in a chair and all 4 legs are set on the ground. And I think the ability to do that as an individual, whether it's after a test academically, whether it's after a bad at bat, whether it's after a bad inning, whether it's after a bad game, the ability just to reset yourself and center yourself back to normalcy and saying, okay, whatever happened. We can talk about it. We can ask ourselves why these things happen. But at the same time, we as an individual and as a collective group have to find ourselves to get right back to a center point to where we can collect ourselves to move on to the next event. And I think that has to be intentional. I think it has to be very deliberate. I think you have to explain it in a way where your kids have keys and tools on how to do it as an individual. But I think really it's probably the secret to life, not just sport, but the secret to life, because we find ourselves even in our own family structure going there all the time. The holidays bring those kind of emotions with us too. And just the ability to, if you traveled during the holidays and said, you got to get here, you got to get here, you got to get here. But then when you went home, it's almost like, oh, I took a deep breath. Now I'm home. Now I'm comfortable again. You find yourself doing that in life all the time. And I think whether it's a loss or whether it's a win or whether it's any event, it's just getting back to that center point where you can recover from whatever you just finished so you can move on to the next event.
You guys talked a lot, and you've touched on it about the summertime. I'd like to ask you about Grayson Moore. I know he pitched really well in the Cape. He missed a lot of bats for you when he was used last year. What did he tell you with his work in the Cape, and how did Grayson follow it up in the fall with what was a very good Cape Cod League?
Well, I think last year was the first year, Daron, that he just kind of moved away from doing two different things, playing a position. He was a switch hitter and pitching. It's like he had 7 different things on his plate, and he was trying to eat it, and that wasn't very comfortable for him. So we talked about that. Let's just go steak and potatoes. Let's just keep it very simple, and let's just attack those right there. And allowing him just to get on the mound and be in the lab on a day-to-day basis with Brownie really helped him. But strength, delivery, and improvement of delivery, and just ground force, understanding how to use the ground with such a strong and powerful arm has really helped this guy move forward into what you now can say he's a pitcher. Because I think before it was just this big, strong kid who was throwing, but now he's not trying to overpower the ball, but he's throwing harder. He's not trying to overthrow the breaking ball, but the breaking ball is crisper. He's doing things with less force, but getting more, he's just getting better results to him. So I think he saw that in the Cape. I think the great thing about the Cape, and Hunter can talk about this too, is you get up there and it's almost like the chains are off, because it's not like, okay, you want to win and you want to be successful, but yet the climate up there, it's more of a relaxed way of learning baseball. And I think you can start to delve into individual things that you may have not delved into when you're competing for your team, because I don't want to risk that. It may set me back a couple of weeks. We're up in the Cape. You're not really concerned about that so much. These kids can be a little bit more free in what they're doing. And I think Grayson was exposed to that. And certainly as he got back here in the fall, you could see kind of the improvements that were made during the course of his freedom up in the Cape and what he took coming back here to Vanderbilt.
We thank you for all this time. Before I let you go, I almost felt like each time I walked by high schooler Carter Holton, I wanted to salute with the type of discipline he showed in his life and the type of discipline he showed as a young man. He's been yours now, Carter Holton, and he was great last year. I mean, what, 80 and a third, 97 Ks. He was great for you. Bring us up to speed on Carter as we get ready to go into the 2023 season.
You know what the best thing about kids like him is? They don't come with any instructions. It's like he shows up, low maintenance, doesn't want anything, doesn't ask any questions, and then he gets on the mound like a 5, or he'll tell you he's 6 feet. It's like a 6-foot Steve Carlton. It's like a 70s player in a 2020 time period. It's that arm swing. It's the high front shoulder. It's the quick arm, but it's the compete. Yeah, it's just a guy out there just trying to win games and throw pitches for his teams and trying to get outs. I mean, if it was that simple, rather than trying to connect all these dots as a pitcher, he's just a breath of fresh air. I mean, I just love him. He's the throwback. He's a 70s pitcher. It's the best way I can say it. You know, Warren Spahn, Steve Carlton, those types of guys right there. I love watching him pitch, and he's been, as you mentioned, so important for our program in 1 year, and looking forward to him getting back out there again. He had the Team USA experience with Enrique this summer, which was great, so I was happy for him there. But this is just a self-made kid. He didn't have a lot growing up. I'm just glad that he's getting more here.
Yeah, what a great answer. Thank you for your insights on Carter. Thank you for your time. Hunter and I really appreciate it.
I do too, Daron. Thank you very much. Hunter, thank you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
When we come back, a conversation with the young man who found us. Anthony Donofrio has evolved as a player at Quinnipiac, and he reached out and said, hey, I've grown a little bit. I'd love to tell my story. We'll provide him that opportunity. This is Perfect Game College Baseball on Perfect Game TV. So as we shared with you when we thanked Tim Corbin for coming on our show, our next guest is a unique one. I'm going to read a little bit of a note that he sent to Perfect Game, and you'll help understand him. My name is Anthony Donofrio. I'm a draft-eligible senior at Quinnipiac University. Been in contact with several teams regarding the upcoming draft, and my agent, my representative, is trying to get my name out there as much as possible. I thought I'd do my best to help as well. He goes into all the important details about himself, and we'll get into that in the interview. At the end, he says, I will appreciate any decision you make. I hope you like what you see. Thanks, and happy holidays. Very best, Anthony Donofrio. And Anthony joins us now. Anthony, you sent this note. I read this note. I reached out to Hunter. He said, sounds like a good guest to have on. Thanks for spending time with us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, I really appreciate you guys having me on today.
What leads a young athlete like this? You shared a little bit in this note, but what led you to do this? And it kind of went into more the greater Perfect Game world, but we snatched it right out of that mailbag, to use an old comparison. We snatched it. We were intrigued by it. What led you to sit down and pen this email?
So I was actually reading along and I saw your guys' article, and I saw that a lot of guys in mid-majors, have a lot of difficulty getting their name out there. So I thought, might as well give it a shot, try and put my name out there, see what I can do. Send an email to you guys, and I'm grateful you guys even responded. I wasn't expecting a response, and now this has come to fruition. So it's really great.
Anthony, I think it's an amazing story of controlling what you can control. Send a letter, write a letter. If you care about something and you want to get your name out there, put in the work. So really beautiful that you sent the letter, that you're out there like trying to find whatever angle you can. And it's a similar way, I'm assuming, that you look at the game of baseball as well. So obviously you're pitching and hitting. You had a great year last year. Can you talk a little bit about how do you approach training for both position playing and also pitching?
That's a great question. It's pretty difficult to balance both, because a lot of the time when you go out to practice, primarily I'm a center fielder. So a lot of the time that's my priority. But ultimately when my coach says, hey, listen, Anthony, we need you to throw a couple innings, I can go do that. I'm old in my ways. I like going out, playing gritty baseball. I'll work into my long toss, I'll get what I have to do, throwing off the mound, and then I'm ready to go. I'm pretty easy going.
Keeping it simple for the most part, but most of your focus is on the position playing, Anthony?
Yes.
All right. And then, following, a good season last year, you're coming into your senior year. What did you learn most, in your first couple of years of college and your development that way? And what are you most excited to bring into this year as far as all of the wisdom and the knowledge you've gained in your years so far as a college player?
Yeah, so I have a pretty unique, interesting story, actually. So I wasn't always all sunshine and rainbows. I didn't always play Division I baseball. I started off actually similar like you. I remember you played JUCO. Am I correct?
Yes, indeed, I did.
You came a long way from there. I ended up out of high school. I wasn't really heavily recruited. Perfect Game showcases got me the exposure I needed. I ultimately committed to SUNY Cortland, which is a school upstate New York. It's Division III program, highly touted. And then ultimately I didn't feel like I was pursuing baseball to the highest level that I thought I could. And I was really interested in finance at the time. I said, you know what, I'm going to transfer. I moved closer to my family on Long Island. I went to Stony Brook for a semester. The coach basically said, listen, Anthony, we're not going to give you the opportunity to play here. I was constantly emailing him, seeing what I could do, trying to get in front of him. He said, no, you're not a good fit for this team. So ultimately I joined a summer league. And I got the opportunity because I emailed hundreds of coaches, and John Delaney, the head coach at Quinnipiac, ultimately said, listen, Anthony, we're going to give you an opportunity to come play for us. And that's what I've been going through so far. It's came a long way from then.
So it's interesting. What gave you that kick in the pants? Because look, I look at SUNY Cortland and I see in 19 you were 3 for 20. The pandemic hit in 2020. You had 9 hits and 31 at bats. That's like you worked very hard to get just 51 at bats. What really clicked for you where you said, hey man, I'm better than this. I'm going to pursue my opportunity. I hope it didn't slip away because, look, I went through something very similar, too, as a college player. I hope my chance hasn't slipped away. I'm going to make the most of this chance. What clicked in you? What moment was it?
I'm going to have to say the support system I have behind me. You know, my family, my friends have always guided me. They said, listen, like a lot of my buddies right now, they've already hit the workforce. And, you know, I am in my 5th year of college and they're supporting me through it. They're saying, listen, Anthony, like go out, do what you love. Like it's my dream to play professional baseball. So the fact that Quinnipiac even, you know, gave me an offer to come join them, I'm incredibly grateful for, you know.
So you last year, triple slash 343, 392, 545. You swiped 15 bags. You homered 7 times. Your last 12 games, kind of laughable, dude. You had 27 hits in your last 12 games. You had 5 home runs in your last 12 games. So if you're going to speak a little bit more mechanically, something Hunter might
Sure.
grab onto with interest that I want to understand. But why? Why did your offense improve? What was it in your approach, your swing, your mind? And you can be detailed. I played a bit in the minors, but why did you improve so much as an offensive player as it pertains to your swing and approach last year?
That's a great question. I think I improved my mental game more than anything. I really focused it. I like to keep the game simple. I feel like a lot of guys these days like to overcomplicate things. You know, I know what I do really well and I hit the ball the other way really well. So I just try and stay within the confines of what I'm capable of and what I know I can do. If I can just hit low liners the other way, get on base, score some runs for my team, that's my job. And if I do my job on that particular day, I know going forward, we're going to get some W's. So,
Anthony, I love that you say that. And small story, not that important, but I run into a couple college kids yesterday walking to breakfast. They asked me, hey, what's the best piece of advice you can give me? And my one piece of advice was the mental game is more important than anything else. You have to do all of it. And I love that I hear that your answer is the mental game. Can you go a little bit deeper, dive a little bit deeper? What did you change in your mental game? What did you add on that kind of locked you in to end so strong?
Okay, yeah. I look at every count as an 0-0 count. So going into it, clear head, and I'm just looking for a fastball I can drive. You know, anything out of the zone, I'm not swinging at. Anything in the dirt, I'm not swinging at. I kind of just focus solely on putting bat on ball and hitting it hard anywhere. When it comes to the mental game, like you said, I just try and keep things simple. Again, I don't like to overcomplicate things, and anything in my power to just, you know, put bat on ball is what I'm going to try and do.
Less is more. Okay. And do you have like a specific goal coming into this season, you know, overarching your last year, you know, you have the dream to play professionally. Do you have a specific goal headed into this season?
I want to double on my stats from last year. Hopefully I led the conference in hitting last year. Hopefully I'd like to, you know, go one step higher than that, maybe lead the Northeast in hitting. I want 15 home runs, 30 stolen bases. I want to bat 400 clean slate, and then that's kind of where I'm at right now. So
I love that you know that already. I highly recommend putting pen to paper, writing that down, and having it somewhere you see every day, Anthony. And then lastly, who's your favorite big leaguer to watch? You know, you dream of playing professionally, and who's your favorite to watch, and who do you consider that you might be comparable to?
I love the exciting new players that are coming onto the scene now. The Pirates just picked up O'Neal Cruz. I love watching him. He's a 5-tool player. You know, I like to think the similar likes of me. You know, I can throw the ball hard. I can swing it pretty well. I can run pretty fast. And, you know, he does all those things attribute-wise incredibly well. So he's definitely my favorite player to watch.
Yeah, you've got a powerful arm, yes?
I could get it up there. On the mound, I'm not a big location guy. Unfortunately, I kind of just throw really hard. But from the outfield, I can get it up to 98.
Okay, and you got wheels under you, right? Well, I know at the World Showcase 4 years ago, you ran like a 6'7". You're now like a 6'4", huh, in the 60?
I'm down to the 6'4", yeah. On and off, 6'4", 6'5", I can get it down to there, so.
So to simplify it, Anthony, and thank you for hanging out with us. This has been very, very cool. You just want a shot, correct?
I mean, in life, that's all you really need is just someone taking a chance on you. You just need an opportunity to prove your worth, prove yourself, prove what you can do. And I think, like, I'll put myself in a good position going forward this year, this upcoming season. Statistically, if I can do what I need to do, I feel like I'll put myself in a good chance for success to possibly play professional baseball. So.
Find your way onto a roster. We're going to check back in with you. Can you picture, by the way, what it may look like in July when maybe they call some of these young men that Hunter and I talk about out of high school or college in night one? Can you picture maybe on one of those days that you get a call, that they reach out to you? Can you picture that?
I mean, that's the dream. That's why we all do it. That's why we all play. That's why we get up in the morning. You know, professional baseball for college kids, high school players is ultimately the end goal if it's possible. And there's a lot of valleys, leaps, and ways to get there. So I've got my fingers crossed, and I'm optimistic. So we'll see what happens.
Anthony, thank you for reaching out to us. Your stories are really good one. We appreciate it. Have a great 2023 season. We're going to check on you, okay?
Thank you so much for having me.
Anthony Donofrio and, of course, Tim Corbin, the head coach of Vanderbilt. A very unique show. Hunter and I, thank you for hanging out with us. Again, a quick Happy New Year to all of you. This is Perfect Game College Baseball on Perfect Game TV.